Welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast, where we come together to make a difference in the lives of children in foster care and the families who care for them. Foster Friendly communities are part of a nationwide movement by America's Kids Belong that helps people from all walks of life take action and help kids and families thrive. You'll hear from former foster youth, foster and adoptive parents, social workers, faith and business leaders, and other experts on how to engage in meaningful ways. Our hosts Brian, Travis, and Courtney explore inspiring stories of everyday people making a difference in foster care where they live and work.
Hello and welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast. My name is Courtney Williams, one of the hosts, along with my co-host Travis Vangsnes. And Travis, this is May, which means it is
Foster Care Awareness Month. Woo-hoo!
There we go. You knew the answer. I'm glad. And so we are super excited to have one of the probably most well-known names and faces in foster care, a repeat guest, only our second ever repeat guest, I think. So, and you were also here last May, which was Foster Care Awareness Month. So we have with us again, Laura, the foster parent partner. Hey. Laura is a social media creator who creates videos and provides practical advice and relatable stories to help others navigate the complexities of foster care. And she just released her first book, First Time Fostering.
There it is.
Yes, thank you.
So welcome for the second time, Laura.
Yes, I really appreciate you guys having me back. It's amazing. I love talking to you all and I love the work you do. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great to have you. You're always welcome on. So really looking forward to this conversation. And well, let's just kind of get started talking a little bit about your book. So now you're known, as Courtney said, for your practical videos on foster parenting, which often get millions of views on YouTube. It's honestly phenomenal. Also, as I consider like how marginalized the space of foster care is. So for your work and efforts to get that many eyes on a space that desperately needs it is amazing. So thank you for all you do in that. Now, as we talk about your book, I'm really fascinated. Kind of tell us about, what made you write that? What was the kind of origin story of that? And how was writing a book different than all your YouTube content creation?
Yeah, I really, to be honest, resisted it for a while because I didn't feel like I could get some of the magic of the videos into book form. And, people kept asking me, like, do you have this all written down somewhere? I don't have time to go through every, the hundreds of videos. And so I started blogging on Patreon and offering some, blog posts to kind of summarize some information. But ultimately, that still was just, a lot of effort for people who are in the weeds, who are wanting answers now. And so I was like, okay, let's try to put this in book form. And, as I was putting the outline together and drafting some chapters, I really started to believe in it too. And like, now that it's done, I'm like, yes, this is it. If you are, liking my videos and appreciating the content and learning something, it mirrors my content. I have, lots of information, all age groups. It's crowdsourced. It includes tidbits and, nuance that community members have shared. And there's scripts as a starting place. So you're still going to get all that information, but this is now in a handheld field guide for people who are really looking to sit down with the information.
And it'll also be on audiobook and Audible and stuff like that?
It will absolutely be. So if you prefer to learn, while you're driving in the car or waiting in the waiting room for a visit, you absolutely can listen to it as well. And I am narrating it. So you'll still hear my voice and hear me say the scripts and all of that. So.
Love it. Yeah. Well, Laura, my husband and I, so we've been licensed for 19 years now. And over the years, we've spoke to multiple groups, multiple states. And as we've done that, when we first started fostering, we used to, we first learned about this need and jumped in. We would try to talk everybody into fostering. It was like, everybody needs to do this. There's a need. But over the years, our stance has completely changed. We almost try to talk people out of fostering before talking them into it because we want them to really know, like, have realistic expectations of what to expect and the needs. And, a lot of people come in like, oh, I just want a happy little baby, type thing. And I know after reading your book and reading your intro, I know you can relate to that. So
Yeah.
How do you find that balance when you're talking to people and writing your book and making videos between being open and real with people, but yet still, like, it's National Foster Care Awareness Month. We want to recruit families. Like, how do you find that balance?
Absolutely. And we do need families. That need is there. And it's always on my mind. And, making content, writing a book, thank you. I do mention this in the intro because I sit in bed at night and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I say this, is that going to just stop someone immediately in their tracks and they won't even step in? And so it's a balance, right? There will always be more to the story and more to share and, more harder moments. But I think that it's important to touch on those at a first level, but get people prepared to begin with. And so that's what I always kind of go back to. What does that new or hopeful foster parent really need to know about? What is it going to affect in their life on the first day? And that's where I kind of begin. And when I talk to people, I was like, okay, how does this feel? Like if that alone, if, disruption in your work or not having time for your hobbies or being really busy during the week with, 15 appointments, if that already is kind of giving you pause, then you may need to have a different avenue to support the foster care community. But I think it's important for the kids' sake that we are honest and we start with, here's the reality of what it looks like. There will always be more to the story, and that's kind of like my mindset. I want to tell people, but you have to start at the beginning too. And that is really what is in my book. It is for, the newer foster parent, the hopeful foster parent who is really trying to figure out, like, does this make sense for our family? And I think it's important that people think about that. I love what he said. I try to talk them out of it first before I talk them in. And I think being real and honest, and it can be gentle, but it is important.
Yeah.
In our story, we came from being house parents at a group home, and I'll never forget, there were some teenage high school girls that when new couples would come in to interview, and it was a really rigorous process, which is what it should be. And I remember the girls were kind of telling, they would have a portion of the interview and they would tell some of the prospective people to be hired, like, look, if you're not really in this or going to be here long, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
And I had a guy that he's like, that's why we didn't come. We couldn't say that to them. So you really appreciate, like,
I love
how
that.
real that is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always encourage people to listen to system impacted youth, former foster youth, because if those stories really scare you or make you uncomfortable and give you pause, it is good to pause there.
Yeah.
Because those are real stories. These aren't the dramatic things you hear in the headlines. Like, these are the day-to-day stories of what it is to be a foster parent. And I appreciate what those girls said.
Yeah. Well, it's ultimately about them, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So going back, looking at your book, it offers practical in the moment guidance so foster parents and kinship caregivers can navigate the hard moments with compassion and confidence, which is so crucial. Tell us a little bit more. Walk us through some of the chapters of the book, kind of give us some of the content.
Sure. So the first part of the book is the preparation stage, which even if you are in licensing and, getting ready for your first placement or have the first child, I think it is important to think about some of the things and making sure you have everything you need, not just for your home, but for your family. Thinking about how to engage with your community, questions you should be having with your partners or your family members to make sure that everyone is on board. There's also things to think about financially, just to set your family up for success because, as we've said, foster parenting is not easy. The second part of the book is most things that happen in the home. So this is really about supporting specific situations like you would see in my videos. And there are chapters that are just like a specific element. So like nighttime or maybe meals and snack and feeding support. You would just go to that chapter if that's where you're at and that's what you're needing help with. And you could read that chapter and it kind of it's a standalone. And then the third part, the last part of the book is the stuff that happens outside of the home. So that's working with the professional team, advocating, working with parents and relatives and visits and all of the stuff kind of out of our control, but we are a part of and can advocate within.
Awesome. Well, that's really helpful to kind of give that overview. And then for the kind of the sake of this conversation, as we continue to talk through that, we're going to focus more on the listeners who may be considering foster care. But also then if you're a current foster parent, we recommend, as Courtney said, a good preview of the book, or actually you read it, is to, get a copy and look through, especially things like holidays, hygiene issues, big behaviors, food insecurities, places that maybe you really just need to be bolstered in your kind of information and awareness on. But yeah,
highly suggest getting a copy of it, whether you're considering or current foster parent. Okay, so thinking about these people who are considering foster care, one question we often get, people don't even realize that you can foster as a single parent. But what are some suggestions that you have for single parents considering foster care?
Absolutely. And a large portion of the foster community are single or solo parents. And they play a really important role in foster parenting. So first of all, if you're a listener and you're a single parent, you matter and you are very important. Some kids really thrive with that one-on-one individual attention. And there are sometimes specifics and related to their trauma history where being just with one person may serve them best. So I want to just acknowledge that this is a really needed thing. And I'm grateful for, all the single foster parents that have contributed along the way and sharing things like, making sure that you're resourceful and you have a community of support and thinking through very specific common parenting situations. Like if a kid is sick or if you're sick, how are you managing that and getting help? Do you have people in your life who can drop things off, come to your home and sit and watch the kids while maybe you're resting, for example? And also you have to think about your own self because it is just you in the home. So when there is an escalation, single foster parents have to be really tuned into their triggers and how to cope and co-regulate and regulate in the moment. They don't always have the luxury of tapping out and sending in, another partner. So spending time and learning about yourself, I think, is important. And, because it is also you, a lot of single foster caregivers have said, like, being really good at documentation, tracking things, writing things down, because you are the only person witnessing what's happening. And it's hard to remember. So being good and disciplined and staying organized yourself, writing things down, and, making things a little bit easier for yourself too, like finding some efficiencies within your home or using different services like a grocery delivery or having, those tools and ideas on hand that you can use along the way when things get really busy. And lastly, I know that some single foster parents start with maybe just a single child foster placement before doing a sibling group, just to kind of see how they do, or providing respite to begin, to see what they have capacity for and what they can work within their life and their constraints with work and whatnot.
Great advice.
Yeah. Coming from a veteran foster
parent. I know that you've spoken with a lot of single foster parents as well.
We have had a lot on the podcast, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We
I appreciate that.
Yeah. It was quite a few, just people who are doing great things. And like I said, a lot of people don't even realize that they can foster as a single or solo person. So
it's needed for sure.
For sure. And like you said, I've had kids before.
It's not like a negative or anything like that. Like, again, like I said, it fulfills very specific needs within the community.
So those kids with, high mental health needs or other needs, and then be able to have a caregiver who's not also focusing on a spouse or other kids to really focus in on them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've got a buddy who fosters. He's single in South Dakota, and he says that very thing, Courtney. He's just like, because I can pour more of myself out directly to the kids. Like the spouse isn't, taking my energy. So it's like, they're all in, so. Yeah. But as you said, Laura, that also comes with the other side of that, where then being more, I guess, given more information on all the things of you're not able to just step out and tap out. So that, so man, what an important part of the book that is. So, another big question people ask is, how can they prepare physically kind of in advance for all ages and stages? So Laura, what do you advise, in the book or otherwise, some general practical advice around preparing ahead of time, kind of in that sense?
It's a question I get a lot too, because, families come in and they're like, well, we're open to taking any age. So how do we even know? And it's good to think about it. And it does feel stressful and like kind of a big job to prepare the home, especially if you've never had children. You don't have biological children or permanent kids in the home. So things to think about. So first of all, contact your licensing worker and get a checklist of what is required for that safety inspection, that home walkthrough, because that will give you just like room to room or very specific information that is what I would call the bare minimum. And so that's what you have to do. And then from there, you're going to be obviously filling in. I always recommend, if you're doing a wide age group, to get convertible furniture. For example, a crib that can also be a toddler bed, booster seats, car seats that can grow with children. That can be really helpful and save you some money and time when you're moving things around. And then getting books and toys that span a lot of different age ranges. You don't need a lot to begin with, because you can always fill in once you know what child's coming, but having a starting place is helpful. And so toys and play items that go across many age items are usually the open-end play items, like the magnet blocks, the train sets, the things that you build, like art supplies, more of that open-end stuff you will see kids across all ages accessing and playing with. And then I would always recommend going room to room. And even though you have that safety checklist, just make sure it's kid safe. Like get down on the level of a child. Is everything on that level safe? Is it secured? Are your breakables put away or sentimental items? Are there kid-friendly things around the house, like night lights and step stools? Are all the things that kids need accessible to them? And that activity can be really helpful for families who've never had kids before, to be like, oh yeah, like not every kid can use my glasses, like drinkware. Maybe I need some plastic or sippy cups or water bottles, things like that. That kind of will get you thinking in the mindset of, providing care for kids. It is not always obvious, I will say. When I first started, I was like, oh yeah, we're good to go. And then my friend who has children came over and she's like, Laura, what are they going to eat with? When this child throws this bowl, what's the plan? Like things like that. Because you're thinking about so many things at that licensing time. So that activity can be really helpful in getting ready.
It's so helpful. It's funny. I have 9 children. We've fostered a ton of kids, and we have a placement right now of a 2-year-old. We haven't had a little one in the house for a very long time.
Oh, different.
And it's like, you just forget, you think your house, like, oh yeah, we have kids there all the time. You're like, oh no, this is different. And we've had to put away so many things over the last couple weeks, and
all the tiny little stuff. Pieces,
yes. Everything.
It's everywhere.
Step stools that we thought are helpful, but it's like, no, not for a 2-year-old who's going to climb up and tumble off. And, yeah,
it slides.
teaching our kids to
where your baby gates, or securing some furniture that could tip. Not every county and state, their safety checklist is what I would argue like true full baby proofing. And so keep that in mind. You will likely need more. And if you are caring for kids with elevated behavioral and emotional needs, you may need a lot more safety things in the home.
Thinking about same kind of topic, but do you have any favorite things that like must-haves in the house? Maybe things that people don't know about, or like this is really good for most kids who are in care.
So I think, like I said, the convertible furniture has always been helpful, but there are what I consider like therapeutic toys and therapeutic items. So that would be like sensory supports. This was something that was not covered in my pre-service training about, it isn't just fidget toys. There's a lot more that goes into supporting regulation for kids. And so having items in all spaces like sensory items can be really helpful. And then therapeutic toys, such as like a doctor's kit or a doll house or people figurines. Those types of items can be helpful for play, but also to communicate things. So, like a doctor's kit, for example, like a little play doctor's kit can be helpful in talking to kids about going to the doctor who maybe have never been to the doctor or are scared to do that appointment or have, some medical trauma. These like toys actually become tools. I've definitely used like little figurine people and houses to explain like, you're going to do this overnight here. So you're going to go to mommy's house and now you're back here. And those types of things can be really helpful. And then the one other thing I will add is games are great, like Uno or Spot It, but also like picture charades specifically, because it doesn't require reading. It's a great game. Everyone can love it. But the cards are a lot of like household items. So like toilet, milk, things that like kids really need. And sometimes, especially when you have like toddlers, you may not understand what they're saying. I don't know if you've ever, met someone else's toddler and they're chatting about something and their parent knows exactly what they said, but you have no idea. Yeah. Well, that same situation happens when toddlers move into your home or, have a few words, and those pictures can be very helpful as kids are a little bit older and you need like a visual schedule or a visual checklist. Those picture cards can be used for kids who need help with reminders and visual reminders.
Yeah. Good ideas. I love all the sensory stuff. I feel like every year for Christmas and other holidays, that's like what we focus on. Like what else can we add now to our playroom or to our house to add more sensory or OT type things? Swings. Yes. We've got multiple swings in our house, inside, outside.
Swings, weighted blankets, weighted stuffed animals, like the Lycra sheets, like all the sensory things, fuzzy things. We're giggling, obviously, but these are real supports. They are tremendously effective, and you can redirect, you can use it throughout the day. And I mean, think about you as an adult. There's definitely like, I sit in front of a little space heater and that feels nice for me. Like it's something, kids feeling nice too. And it can really help their mood and their regulation throughout the day.
Very random little note for our listeners, if you are already fostering or in the process of getting licensed, Mattress Firm, which is on our app, the Foster Friendly app, Mattress Firm gives steep discounts to foster parents. So when we just finished our home and we made a little bunk room.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
They have like full encasing mattresses for one, but also like their mattress protectors, encasing ones and other ones. They were like $6 a piece, and they are high-end mattress protectors. So if you're not on our app, find our app and know that there are resources like that too, of places that give discounts for foster parents to supply your home for. There's OT, things like that, sensory things, but also the mattress one has been huge for our house.
That is huge. Thank you for mentioning that. The app is great. I mean, again, it goes back to being resourceful and finding help, because you can't rely on just the department to support you in all of these very small ways, but meaningful. So I appreciate you saying that.
Great shout out to Mattress Firms.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to be a sponsor of the podcast, so
there you go.
There we go. So we could have a new segment that we're about to pivot to called New Placements Gone Wrong. I mean, we've all been there, but some of the best ways we learn is about, okay, this is where we made some mistakes and how can we do things better or different. So Laura, what's an example of a new placement gone wrong in your home, and then maybe something you said or did and learned through that experience that wasn't the best approach looking back?
I mean, so many. I will say, like, the book is made from mistakes and thousands of people making lots of mistakes. And I like to call them missteps because it is just part of that journey we all walk through. For me, I get really kind of anxious and excited and a little over the top. And I remember when kids would come in, I would just have this level of enthusiasm that was not really matching their tone. It was just sort of like you were arriving at my play area, right? And quick and maybe talking too fast and very overexcited, which is fine for some kids, but could be incredibly overwhelming and maybe even like scary for others. And so I really had to learn how to kind of monitor myself and watch them and kind of match that tone. so that I could be warm and still myself, of course, but meet them where they are as they're stepping into my home. And another place is kind of in those first initial moments and days, and is there's some education to kids about who you are. Why can't you take me home? What is happening? And I wasn't prepared for that, which is why I do spend a lot of time in my book talking about these moments.
Yeah.
And I was trying to fill in a lot of blanks and give them a lot of answers and try to over explain things and maybe answer questions they're not even asking, when really I should have given some more age appropriate responses, reflected back to them about like, well, can you tell me maybe what happened and I can help you make sense of it? And maybe we can, or what do you know about foster care? What have you heard? And kind of meeting the kid kind of where they are and what they know, and addressing those specific concerns and questions first before explaining how the whole system works or guessing what's happening to their parents, when we can just, I don't know is sometimes a very dissatisfying response, but we don't need to guess.
Yeah.
And so I think that is important. And especially for some younger kids, the parents may want to answer some questions themselves about like what's happening and what's going on. So like, where is mommy? Why can't mommy come get me? We don't want to lie to children ever, but I think there is some age appropriateness and a little bit of coordination with their parents. If their parent has an active role in their life, and maybe they're going to be visiting their parent at a rehabilitation center, things like that. But all that information is to come. In those first few moments, we answer what the kid is asking in an age appropriate way. We don't need to say all that extra stuff at this point.
That's great. It reminds me too, you made the point that, often new foster parents, prospective parents, there can be, and rightly, we get it, there can be a fear of what's this place going to be like, or if you've never fostered, like what is that experience? And there can be fear of, say teenagers or whatever. And a friend of mine who's fostered a lot of older teenagers and said, what also the paradigm should be is how many of the kids come in scared to death of foster care.
Yes.
Of foster parents. Like, I'm scared to death of you
exactly.
are.
Like, what do you know about foster care?
Yeah. So
starting there, because maybe they have experience with foster care in the past that you haven't been told about. They know someone who was in foster care. They've been threatened with foster care by adults in their life. And, sometimes you just need to kind of dispel some myths or set the record straight, or they probably won't trust you immediately, but you can kind of take note. I hear that.
Exactly.
And that does happen sometimes. That won't happen here. And that's your starting and jumping off point.
Yeah. I have probably 20 children's books about foster care, but I don't need them on our children's, like their open shelving, because a lot of them, A, are too much for kids when they first come into care, or B, they have a outcome at the end of the story that's maybe not going to be their outcome, which is my biggest
outcome.
pet peeve.
I think I even noted that in my book. Like, you need to pre-read everything, and certainly don't read it right before bedtime.
Definitely.
I think books like that can be helpful if you're educating your permanent children in the home of kind of like what's happening or what to expect, or what, let's open the door for some conversations. But yeah, the outcomes in a lot of kids' books do not align with the kids in our home. So you as the caregiver can change the ending if the child can't read. You can kind of make something up and different for the ending. But yeah, you have to be super careful.
Yeah. Great thoughts. So speaking of the same thing, but just like in a one-liner, how would you say, like, if a permanent child comes to me and says, well, what is foster care anyways? Like, what is like a healthy go-to response that doesn't give too much, but is also like, that's a succinct thing for kids to understand what foster care is?
It would depend a little on age, but I would say things like when kids need to be safe or parents need help, foster families can step in and help parents and help kids stay safe. And that might open the door for other questions. But I think depending on developmentally where they're at, you can talk about the different circumstances as to what might occur. But I usually start as a place like stepping in to help a family, helping kids stay safe, give them what they need. And we hope that kids can return home soon. That's kind of the original tone, because that's what we're doing. You step in to help fill that gap, because sometimes you can reflect, how like we have grandma or we have Aunt Beth, but not every family has a helper, and we can be those helpers, and we can step in to help when families need help.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you say? Do you have something different than that? Or is
No,
that
that's pretty much exactly what I say.
Yeah.
It's funny. I have kids of different ages, and some of them grew up with it, but they still, my youngest will still ask all the time. Well, like we told her 100 times, but she'll still ask, what's foster care again? Or why do we do this foster care thing? So you just keep repeating it.
Yeah, but that's
say a little bit more.
That's kids. You say a little bit more every time, or you answer a different kind of question next time. And, it's always an evolving conversation, as with, when cases evolve too, because those conversations about returning home or going to relatives would also be slightly changing and evolving throughout that case.
Yeah. That's really well said, because you're giving, like you said, just sort of enough, and it gives you explanatory, like a picture, and then it also could open the door for future questions and things like that. But you're not making over promises to, of course, we don't know where these cases could go, or, you're being very careful to honor the birth families, which is important, and be careful of that. So yeah, I really love that. Well, continuing on as we kind of get to the home stretch, what would you say are some of the most common behaviors due to trauma that you've kind of seen that youth in care will tend to express?
Yeah. So it can run the gamut in variety, depending on especially what their experiences were, and, where they're at now, how much stability they've had. But, children as young as babies will have a stiff body. They will have a flat affect, or have trouble feeding and trouble consoling. And that carries in as children age and get bigger. We see those things play out. Having eating troubles, eating, not enough, not having appetite, but maybe overeating, and just generally trouble with meals. You also see it affect sleep. So that could be, kids having nightmares, up a lot at night, trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, having a lot of anxious feelings in the nighttime. During the day, you may see outbursts. I think that is probably what I hear from most people, because it can be the most disruptive in that moment and affect the day-to-day differently, like at school or daycare. And that's maybe saying things that are unkind, yelling or screaming, maybe even hitting or kicking or running away and hiding. This is just like an explosion of feelings. And these are things that kids can't control. And, they're activated. Their nervous system is experiencing a lot. And, I always try to tell people, like, well, think about a time where you were like mad, or something, really horrible happened. That initial reaction, and then what followed. I think about my own experiences as I try to like connect and see a little bit of understanding within our kids of, like, when I lost my dad, right? So I was sad. I didn't want to do my work. I didn't want to do the dishes. I didn't want to do anything. And I was not nice to my friends and family. Well, that's with kids too. It just could be a lot bigger, more intensive, and more unpredictable, right? It's their children. Yeah. And so I think it's really important that we try to be empathetic and compassionate in these moments. And in a lot of times, kids have not had a stable adult to help teach them how to cope in safer ways that, can help them get through these moments of intensity. And that is what a lot of foster parents do. We're de-escalating or avoiding situations that could be hard. And then we're also spending a lot of time getting them professional help with therapy and working on these coping skills and healing and processing their experiences. So it could be a lot of different things. You know, there's a whole page of my book just summarizing the types of things you might see, but it is important to know that like kids do not have control over these like reactions when they're activated like that.
Yeah. And we highly suggest people like from the get-go get a little bit of training if you're considering foster care.
Yeah.
We have a little course, on our webinars, fostercon.org. It's a mouthful.
Yes.
But just watch a couple of those things about trauma too, to understand, again, not trying to scare people away, but to have a basic understanding of where it's coming from and why these behaviors, because it gives you even a compassion, whether you do end up fostering or not, but having understanding and compassion, a little empathy for these kiddos is really what they need.
It goes a long way. It doesn't make it necessarily easier, but I think it does help get through those seasons are hard and kind of refocuses you on your advocacy and your therapeutic support within the home, kind of recenters you in your own why or your own mission as to why you've stepped into this child's life. But yes, any courses about trauma-informed care, how trauma affects the brain on cellular levels, and then also de-escalation strategies and things you can do in these moments to support a child's safety and well-being and others in the home can be really helpful. We took many advanced parenting classes when we were getting licensed, and I'm so thankful we did, because those are, to be honest, the classes where I really learned the things about the day-to-day.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, off the top of your head, can you just think of any, like, whether it's books, movies, just kind of basic resources that you point people to with parenting hard behaviors that just kind of...
Yeah, appreciate all the webinars, and there's a lot of things online already where you can watch on YouTube. Your webinars are a great foundation. There's also like Foster Club, Creating a Family, Foster Parent College. These are accessible, many free courses. And in a lot of places where they're not free, you can ask your agency if they'll cover the cost. They may not advertise it, but it doesn't hurt to ask. There's a book called A to Z on therapeutic parenting, and then Big Baffling Behaviors is another good one. If we're just talking about behaviors, if you're really just trying to get into specifics for behaviors, you do have to take into consideration the system, the workers, the parents, the case, all of that, because that also impacts how you can intervene and how you help in your home. But those off the top of my head, obviously, I talk about behaviors in my book. It is, weaved in with system-related foster parenting considerations. So it is different from those other books. But yes, if you're just thinking behavior, those are the two that come to my mind.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. How about any movies that you've watched? Are there any good movies relating to foster care that have done their job well? Or documentaries?
Yeah, I always go back to the documentary Foster on HBO. That one to me is like the most realistic and balanced because it shows perspectives of workers, parents, foster parents, and youth in care in the courts. Like it does give all the perspectives. And so I think that is a great starting place. And then there's, of course, shows and movies that are more of like a narrative. And those are still important parts of what we do, right? Because it gets people thinking about fostering and people and kids in foster care. For example, the animation Luck, that one features a former foster youth. And while it's not the crux of the story, it is an open door to those stories and, things to think about. My husband and I, when we were getting licensed, we watched the show, The Fosters, I think it's what it's called. It's like, I think for teenagers, but we watched it, the whole series while we were getting licensed. And I don't know, we really enjoyed it. Lots of stuff is over the top, obviously, especially in the later seasons. But it made us talk about things that I don't think we would have talked about if we hadn't watched that. So the narratives, you also hear like Instant Family. there's a lot of truth mixed in with a lot of things that are not totally accurate.
Yeah.
So you have to always, when you're viewing those things, consider that too.
Sure.
And especially as things are so different depending on the type of foster care you provide and where you live.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Well, Laura, as we finish this off, thank you. And again, I highly suggest people check out your book, especially if you're considering or beginning foster parent. For sure, it's a must have. But thinking about your book as a whole and all that you know about the foster families you've talked to or potential foster families you've talked to, what's kind of your number one piece of advice for someone who's considering becoming a foster parent?
Okay. For someone at the early consideration stage, I would say that there will never be a perfect time, or you will never feel 100% ready. I get that question a lot. How do I know if I'm ready?
Yeah.
Sure, I can give you a few things to think about and parameters, but there will always be an element of like taking a chance, a leap of faith. And that is a lot, there's a lot of things kind of out there that we don't know. And that's foster care. That's foster parenting. A lot of surprises, changes, things you couldn't have anticipated. And so I always tell people before they begin, like, it's okay. Like, there's going to be this leap of faith, and that's a part of it. You're not doing it wrong. You're not underprepared. There will always be a little bit of, you just have to go for it. And take your classes, go to those intro sessions, listen to your podcasts, watch those webinars. Those are going to really get you in a good spot of being as ready as possible. But you really have to say yes. There will always be that kind of leap of faith at some point.
Well said.
Yeah, totally agree. And I tell people all the time, your biggest learning is going to come when a kid comes into your doors. So as much as you prepare, you're still going to feel unprepared, and you are going to be unprepared because every situation is different.
It's so true. And the key is like, do you know how to find answers? Because if you know how to seek out answers and get a book that's going to help you, or read something or watch something, that's great. That's all of us. Like the situations that you experience, you could never put in a single book. One foster parent hasn't experienced it all. We, like, with every kid and every parent and every situation, there are new things to learn, and new research, new ideas, new therapy models.
That's it.
It's constantly evolving, which is what we want. So if you're good at finding information and learning, you're good. You're good to go. You're ready.
Yeah.
That's a gold line right there. Yeah. I mean, we've interviewed so many veteran foster parents, and obviously, Courtney, your experience.
Yeah. What do they say? I'm scared.
Well, it's the same. It is exactly the same thing. It's like this idea of ongoing. I'm an ongoing learner.
Yeah.
And that
you got to just take the leap of faith and just
and to your point
yourself.
That you're not going to have it all figured out in advance because their behaviors change, research changes. I mean, you have to know that it's okay to sometimes. We're not going to know everything. So that's
no. Well, and you won't be perfect and wonderful the first time through, maybe not even the second, third, fourth, like, perfecting things as we go, and like, that routine is not going to work out. We got to make the change there. Like, that's part of it. I think that's a universal parenting thing, but especially within foster parenting, you have to workshop stuff. You're going to talk to professionals. You're going to learn something new. You're going to go to a support group and pick up a little tidbit, like, oh, that made me think of something. That is part of it. And if you're comfortable in those situations, then you are going to be a wonderful foster parent. That's a great quality.
Yep. So again, if you're considering foster care, check out Laura's book, First Time Fostering.
Thank you.
Cool cover.
I know. Thank you.
I love the colors in it. Yeah.
Thank you. I try to we try to make it reflective of who I am and, what I do already. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about the whole thing, so I appreciate that.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And we do hope that some of our listeners, if you're considering foster care, that just this episode maybe helped you consider and helped you realize where you can get some resources and to take your next yes in the foster care equation, whether that's respite care, whether that's just supporting a foster family for now, or taking on the leap of faith and fostering. We need more foster families. Well, thanks again, Laura, for the second
Thank you
time.
for having me. I appreciate the conversation, and I appreciate everyone listening who's considering stepping in to help in some way. So thanks so much.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, will you help us reach more people by subscribing, sharing the podcast with a friend, and leaving a 5-star review? If you've been inspired by what you've heard today and want to learn more of how you can make a difference for kids in foster care and the foster families where you live, visit americaskidsbelong.org. We depend on individual donors to fund our work. We'd be grateful if you would consider joining us as a monthly donor. Visit americaskidsbelong.org to make your tax-deductible donation. Thank you. Together, we can ensure a family for every child in foster care and a foster-friendly community to ensure every foster family feels loved and supported.